Árnason. Valbert skorar. Valbert Gunnarsson hefur skorað. Ragnar Bergjesson og skoðaðar. Glæsilega gert. Óskar Hrafn á móti Bjarna. Og Bjarni með góða sendingu fyrir og það aftur Ingvarsson.
Yes, this is the best of pod ever, and we have officially reached the split. It's here. The first week has come and gone. That means we've played 23 matches across the entire season and one round of matches in the split. As always, I'm joined by Tryggvi, my compatriot over there in Copenhagen. How's the weather over there, Tryggvi?
It's quite nice. They promised some rain, which I'm praying for. I'm ready for autumn. It's been I'm Icelandic. I'm not made for hot weather.
Nice. Yes, it is turning here also in Ohio. Leaves are starting to change color. It's cool in the mornings and then it warms up during the day. So we're still at about 80 degrees Fahrenheit for end of day temperatures, and then it really cools down once the sun goes down. But anyways, we're not here to talk about fall. So let's dive into the football. So we're going to go ahead and split kind of our episode up a little bit as well. Now that the split has happened, we're going to talk about the relegation teams, the bottom six, and then we're going to talk about the championship group, the top six. Yeah, starting things off, we'll go ahead and discuss Fylkir IBVF. So it ended in a 2-2 draw between these teams, something that I don't think seems not uncommon, I guess, between these two sides at the moment. Neither team able to find a way to get all 3 points here, which makes it interesting because in the other result, which was also a draw, Fram was able to kind of close the gap on Fylkir, and IBVF did as well. So now IBVF and Fram are both tied on 20 points, and Fylkir, I think, is only 2 points ahead of them. So yeah, we're in the business end of the season. This was a really, this was an interesting game. Fylkir started off well in the first half. They took the lead. But then IBVF came storming back in the second half and ended up drawing 2-2 to get a point. Tryggvi, how did you see this game?
Yeah, a bit like that. It was Fylkir had a better first half. It sort of switched off a bit in the second, and then didn't really turn back on until IBVF had pulled ahead. Sort of quite, I don't know. You might have the stats on exactly how many shots, but I don't know. It didn't seem like they were breaking down the door exactly. It just but they managed to get 2 goals, and then Fylkir switched on in the last few minutes, like they've done a bit this season. They're a bit. I remember talking about it in the beginning of the season. It always felt like they were coming back from 1-0, from being 1-0 down in the beginning of games. They never seem to lead. In the beginning of the season, I think it's balanced out a little bit, but it's been sort of the story of Fylkir season. They look really good in periods, but then seem to switch off.
Yeah, I do have stats actually for this game. So total shots for Fylkir was 13. Total for IBVF was 15. Yeah, interesting to see to kind of see that. IBVF had 4 of those on target, and 7 of them were on target for Fylkir. And Fylkir hit the woodwork once. Perhaps maybe a little bit of a better opportunity for Fylkir to come away with all the points, but they didn't manage it. Something that did catch my eye about this game is the pass count. I felt like it was a little low. So there must have been. Well, I think it's clear. I mean, watching the game, the ball was bouncing around a lot. But usually we see pass counts I think for most games above 500, pretty easily, I would say for much of the season, but neither team in this game got above 450. So a little low there, just kind of an interesting little piece. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, they split the points. It doesn't really suit anybody too much. And so I don't know if there's much more to say about this game, to be honest.
No, I think the biggest for IBVF, apart from not winning, like you said, is that Guy Smith was subbed off with a head injury. It didn't seem like it was that serious in the interviews after the game, so he's hopeful that he'll play in the weekend against Fram, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So IBVF will definitely be hoping that's not too serious, because he's been one of, if not their best player this season, I think. So they don't want to lose him for this relegation battle.
Yes, he has been immense. That's for sure. Do you have any theories about Fylkir and their goals for this season?
Funny you should ask. I mean, we sort of looked, because we've had this conversation about Fylkir a few times this season, and like I said, about them switching off a bit. So this is manual work. I would love to get more data on this through some sort of database or something, but I just sort of manually went through their goals, and they do concede more in the second half. They sort of concede 27 versus 20. I really hope those numbers add up to the correct total. And they also scored a little bit more in the second half. But I think it's more. I did it actually by minute, because I'm a huge nerd. So I could see that they concede, like, they've conceded, I think, 4 goals in the 90th minute. And they've also conceded 4 goals in the around the 51st minute, 52nd minute or something. And, also on the 40th, and then also for 45th. So they do seem to be conceding a little bit more in the beginning and end of halves, which is interesting. And maybe we can send this on to Rona Pall in Fylkir and let him know. But I mean, they also score a bit more in the end of games. We've seen them rescue some points. FL comes to mind a few times. Maybe all those goals are against FL there.
It's definitely possible. You can't necessarily rule that out, I guess, right? Yeah, I think also I would just add for IBVF, they made a couple signings late on, and I think as a way to try to push to kind of save themselves. And honestly, I haven't felt like those signings have made a huge impact. Like, Brew is one of them. Yeah. I mean, Nkololo didn't even play, in this game. And then, Brew came on in the 72nd minute, and I felt like his first couple games were okay. We kind of talked about that in a previous episode, but I'm not sure that they're making the impact that perhaps was hoped for. So it is really turning into a bit of a mosh pit in the middle of this relegation group. Like, and we can talk about this maybe in a second a little bit more, because we're gonna move on now to the next game, which was Haukau against Fram. But Haukau is sitting on 26 points. Fylkir, Fram, and IBVF are not that far behind them. Fylkir's on 22, so only a 4-point gap, and then Fram and IBVF right there on 20. So I guess my question, as we kind of lead into Haukau, do you think that there's a chance that they could get sucked into this? I mean, they've looked pretty good all season long. The way they performed has been above and beyond what we've seen, I think, from Fylkir, IBVF, and Fram. I think it's fair to say. But I also think it's fair to say that Haukau in the last few weeks has seen a dip in their form.
For sure. And there is a world where they get dragged into this, but my only thing is, I don't think they need to be caught by 3 teams. Like, all 3 teams need to catch up to Haukau. So Fylkir, Fram, and IBVF, in theory, Keflavík can't catch them.
Right.
So that's my only thing. Like, if there was only Fram and Fram were behind them by 6 points. I think that could be a possibility. Fram were looking quite good. I think we saw in this game that they're playing quite good football. They wasted a penalty. Our friend Fredji, unfortunately, missed a penalty there. And there was, I think, an open goal. Like, I don't know, maybe not that one. like his name is officially now. I think he missed an open goal, and so they had a lot of chances. And if it was only Fram that was catching them, that would be quite interesting. And I think maybe, I don't think all three of these teams can catch Haukau. So I think they're pretty safe, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Maybe I was getting ahead of myself a little bit there, but because the numbers can be deceitful in that regard. It's just 26 points, but they're only 4 points. Anyways, so
no, but I mean I agree with you that they haven't looked super good, and in this game against Fram, they didn't. This was sort of the worst of Haukau, not really being super efficient and threatening a little bit on counters, but not not enough, and not being clinical in the chances they were getting. So yeah, I definitely agree. There is a world where they get dragged into this. Because they aren't playing super convincingly, but I think, I just don't think they'll be caught by all three.
Yeah. So in case we didn't mention it earlier, this ended 1-1, and they ended up sharing the points. Obviously, Fredji did miss that goal, the penalty in the first half, as you already mentioned, and then Arnthor Atlason made it 1-0 to Haukau just after halftime, and then it took another penalty, which was this time converted by Yannick Pohl, who is a player that we highlighted in our last show. He has stepped up to the plate, I think, for Fram, and as you mentioned earlier, I think he's one of these players that not only does he need to get going if they're going to stay up, but also he's been key to, I think, a little bit of their turnaround as a team. And so he converted the penalty, and it ends 1-1, which again doesn't do a ton for either side, but a point is a point. And if you're Fram, it brings you, I guess, that much closer perhaps to safety, right?
Yeah, for sure. They couldn't afford to lose points, to go from this game with 0 points. So 1 point is something, but they definitely would have liked to pull up to Fylkir to 22. But that's the second penalty. I think we can say that was not a penalty. It was a little bit outside of the area, but so they got a do over. They got a bit lucky there, and that's what you're gonna need in this relegation battle, is a bit of luck. So they wasted some of it, and then got some back. But they need to know that they're not going to get this every game, so they need to be a bit more clinical.
Right. I also think there are a few players for Fram in their defense that stood out, not only to us, but to some others as well. And we're, of course, talking about Sigfús Arni and Dengil Orason.
Yeah, that's a tough name. Think it. That's a.
This is good. I need to learn this.
But they were quite good. It's Fram don't have a huge squad, and so they had to dip into their younger players. I think it made his debut, and I think Sigfús Arni had played maybe 1 or 2 games before. But they're both teenagers and had to play at a tough away game. It may not be the fiercest crowds at Haukau, but it's different. You're inside, you're playing on an AstroTurf, on sort of. It's a different kind of challenge, and you have to gear yourself up mentally for something like that. And I think both of them did really well.
Well, let's talk about a team who did not do so well, and that is Keflavik. They, to their credit, they kind of clawed their way back into this game just a little bit. But in the end, it just didn't really have it. And so they were facing Kawa, and it ended 4-2. And it was really a poor start from Keflavik. And they kind of got under the gun, and they had a really hard time catching up. Nacho Harris scored in this game, and as well as someone else who I can't remember at the moment. But I mean, I think it's obvious that Keflavik are pretty much down. Like, it's not official yet, but I don't know. I much like this game, I just don't think they're going to be able to catch up.
I think they are as much down as Víkingur are champions. It's not official, but it's pretty much.
It's unofficially official.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's both teams are on goal difference now, so it's yeah. But it's there's not much to say about this game, to be honest. It was it almost was a good comeback. There was a chance where I was watching and I saw that they were like 3 or 2 against, either 3 against 2 or 2 against 1. I don't quite remember. And it just kind of wasted. It didn't really go anywhere. They weren't quick enough and ended at a pretty weak shot. So they could have equalized there. That was when it was 3-2 to Kawa. And then Kawa just pulled away. And this is just the story of Keflavik's season, especially in the latter half. They're scoring goals, but they just can't.
Yeah.
Like 2 goals against Kawa in most games this season would have been enough for at least a point, but it's just Keflavik, so it's just not.
Yeah.
They can't. Their defense is not looking too solid, and unfortunately.
All right. Did you mention how Grimmer had 2 games and then he assisted in 1? You might have already said that, but I just wanted to make sure that we threw that in there because he did have a good performance in this game. So props to him. All right, so that's kind of the relegation group wrapped up there. So 1 win, 2 draws between the 6 teams. I think that in and of itself says a lot about this group and where some of these teams are at. Just hard to win, not a lot of wins, especially once you get kind of past Kawa. And even with Kawa, I think there's a point earlier in the season where they were struggling too. So it's, I think it's going to be whoever can put together a run here for the last, 4 games is going to find the key. So we're going to step out of the league for just a second. We're going to talk about the cup final, which took place last weekend. You were actually in Iceland the day of the game, but I don't think you were able to make it. I was not able to catch any of this, so this is going to be all you. So yeah, tell us.
Yeah, no, I wasn't unfortunately able to make it. It was really bad weather that day. They actually moved the Breiðablik FH game, which we'll touch on a bit later. They actually moved that by one day because of the weather, because it was just absolutely dreadful. And it was a bit like that sort of a game. Víkingur play to the occasion a little bit. They know how to do this. This is technically their 4th cup win in a row. 19, 21, 22, now 23, with the asterisk of the 2020 season, which was called off, which Kawa would have won, obviously. So that's.
So we're not bitter.
No, of course not. So 4 in a row with an asterisk. So they know how to play this game. They know how to play this sort of, not just a cup final, but this sort of a game. They know how to close things down, to keep things a bit, not dirty, but a bit, break the game up with. I felt like they were diving a little bit and just trying to break up play a little bit. So they knew exactly what they were doing. And when they were 2-0 up, sort of felt the game was over. But credit to Kawa, they came back. They scored a pretty nice goal, which to pull it back to 2-1, and then I think, okay, maybe they can muster up. They've been quite good at these sort of knockout games. They've done it well in Europe, right? So maybe there's one last fight in them, but then breakaway out of Sigurpálsson, there was never going to be anything else than a goal there. So 3-1 to Víkingur. There was a lot of controversy in this game. There was the first goal. There was some pushing there. You could definitely argue that there was some pushing, and then maybe there's a free kick for Kawa. The second goal was a nicely taken free kick, but the free kick, I think there's a pretty strong argument to say that free kick shouldn't have been a free kick. Dusan Berkovic got the ball. I think it was him. He got the ball so it shouldn't have been a free kick. And then funnily enough, the Hallgrímur Jónsson, the Kawa manager, even said that the Kawa goal shouldn't have stood. He said none of the first 3 goals should have stood in this game. And the Kawa players and the coaches were absolutely fuming after this game. And yeah, you can definitely see their point. But I mean, it was a good performance from Víkingur. Again, making changes. Mattias Williamson playing in the central of defense this time. We talked about that he played it as a fullback the other day. Now he played in the center of defense, and did it well, as he does everything this season. And yeah, this was not much else to say. Terrible weather, Icelandic football sort of game. Víkingur knew exactly what sort of game they were playing, and Kawak just couldn't quite match up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, this was really like the last thing that Kawa had to play for, to be honest. I mean, they're not really threatened with relegation at all, and they're out of Europe. And so this was it. And yeah, from what you're telling me, they just kind of didn't show up like maybe I thought they might, considering this is all they had left to go for.
I mean, they had moments and stuff. It's just, I think,
sure,
it's really hard to play a team like Víkingur in this sort of game. But
yeah,
and then like I said, that they felt very aggrieved after the game, and they had a point.
Well, so that's the cup done for another season. Maybe next year somebody else will lift it. Who knows? Maybe it'll be Kaur. Because speaking of Víkingur and Kaur, those two played yesterday, actually, as the final match of the round. And this was probably done on purpose, thinking that Víkingur were going to lift the title at the end of this game officially. But it didn't work out that way. They have not officially won the title yet. Kaur storming back in the second half after going down 2-0 to draw 2-2. And that's a big point for Kaur, I think, but also maybe slightly disappointing for Víkingur. Coming off that cup win, they were already flying high. Maybe they just felt like they were going to kind of roll over Kaur, and yeah, it didn't pan out that way. They went up 2-0 in the first half, and then they just kind of petered out a little bit. And so, yeah, this is, Kaur is your team. We both watched this game, and it was a fun one for sure. When that second goal went in for Kaur, I was in my car actually, and was pretty animated.
It was definitely fun. It's great to watch these sort of games. I was up on my feet in the last 15-20 minutes. Just I was really excited. I couldn't quit. It was one of those games. It was just tackles flying and ball was pinging from one end to the other, and it was a really great end to the game.
Yes, it was tense.
Yeah, it was. We were very close to a red card in a few of those occasions.
Yes.
But I mean, now it was Víkingur's turn to be upset after the game. Aron Elís
scored the first goal.
Yeah, scored the first goal. And there was an interview with Runar as well, and he said both the goals that Víkingur scored. So the first goal was a header from Aron Elís in the corner, and he said we knew exactly what they were going to do. We just didn't stop them.
Well, okay, so let me stop you there for a second, because I'm not sure a whole lot of people could have stopped that, if we're being honest. Like how high he got up, and just the amount of snap that he has in his neck, to put the power on that ball, is ridiculous. So, I mean, I think any defender would have been up against it to stop him from that one.
Yeah, for sure. He's good at this. There's a reason why he's scored now a few goals exactly like this. But I think the marking just wasn't good. He did get a run up to it. So there was the 2 or 3 seconds before the goal happened, there was nobody marking him. So it's more like that. At least if he's going to score, at least be marking him. But no, you're right. You're completely right. It's hard to. He's an athlete, very much so, and it's a really good one. So it's hard to stop a guy like that. But still, kind of annoying when he's done basically, or it's not a carbon copy, but the same sort of goal that he scored against Coward a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
So it's a bit annoying. And then the second goal that they scored was a gift. Christian Jonsson passed it to absolutely nobody except for Daniel Juric, who took the ball and then scored past a very oddly positioned Simon Kjelleveld in goal. I'm not really sure. I know he wasn't expecting this, but he sort of stood next to his post almost. It was very strange. So at that point, I think most people 2-0 at halftime. Most people think, okay, this is over. But credit to Kara, they came back. They 2 identical goals, counters from a Víkingur corner. Benoni Breki, who I will not be quiet about,
for good reason,
scored one and started the move to the second one. And Christian Jonsson, his redemption arc was complete when he scored one and assisted one. So yeah, really good comeback. And I mean, Víkingur could have scored once or twice. Daniel Juric had a really bad miss in the second half. There's also a really nice save from Simon Kjellevord on a few occasions, but and then Kenny Chopart got 1-on-1 with the keeper, and in university would have been a penalty or a free kick for penalty for Kawa there at the very end of the game. But yeah, 2-2 is probably fair.
Yeah, this was a fun game. I felt like it was very open, which isn't something that we've necessarily seen from Víkingur this season. I felt like Kaur was able to create several good chances, many of which you've already mentioned. And also, as you mentioned, on the flip side of that, they had opportunities to win the game too. In front of a very packed crowd at home, because I think most of those people thought that was going to be the title done and dusted there.
For sure.
So now Víkingur has to head to Breiðablik and see if they can win the title there in a hostile environment. So that's going to be really interesting considering all the drama that those two have had this season. We'll see. We'll see what happens this next week, I guess, between those two. Which leads us into our next game between Breiðablik and FH. And it ended 2-0 to FH. So for the second match in a row, FH's found a way to get a good result away to Breiðablik and on turf, no less. So maybe that duck is broken. Maybe that curse is gone. That would be great. Yeah, there was a huge pause in this game because Kjartan Kari was on the ground for quite some time. He got clobbered into, and I still don't know how the Breiðablik goalkeeper was not sent off for that challenge, in my opinion. I mean, just an absolutely ridiculous challenge. Like, you can't even say it was a 50-50, in my opinion. My mind was completely blown. And yeah, I'm being partial when I say that, given, my allegiances, I guess. But I think I would have said the same thing if it had been any other team too. I mean, that's just a ridiculous challenge, and he didn't even get a card for it. I mean, it's just like, what? But as it's come out later, it appears that there's nothing broken, so that's positive because, yeah, he was on the ground for a really long time, like almost 20 minutes, I think. There was a huge break in the game. I was definitely concerned because with some departures, now we're relying heavily on him out wide in the wide spaces going forward, and so he would definitely be a loss for us going forward. Yeah, I think again it was a really good performance. I don't actually have a ton to say about this game. I thought FH played it very well. I thought David Sneyer was brilliant. He got the first goal in this game and again continues to play really, really well. And I'll be surprised if he's around next season. If I'm being honest, I think he's earned a move elsewhere to play because he's done really well for FH, and also I think too for some of I think he's in the under-21 national team for Iceland, if I'm not mistaken, and so he's performed well for them too. So good player. And it was just kind of an all-around performance. Breiðablik, on the other hand, just were not there.
Yeah.
They just kind of were aloof and didn't really feel like they had a lot of offensive punch in this game. Like, it didn't really feel like they were capable of scoring goals. At least that's how I saw it. I think that's troublesome. And I mentioned on our Twitter account a couple days ago, I think there's been a huge drop off offensively for Breiðablik since Stefan Ingi left. And we've talked about this before, but I just don't think they've been able to replace him. And they've had to juggle a lot of different things, a European campaign and at one point a title challenge, and that all plays a factor. And there have been other players that have stepped up to score. I'm not discounting what they've done, but I think offensively going forward, he's been a huge miss for them that they haven't been able to replicate as we've talked about before. And it continued in this game.
Yeah, like you said, they've struggled going forward, and then they've had this issue at the back all season. They've conceded 38 goals, which is the same as Kauer, and Kauer has not had the perfect season. I think that's definitely worrying. And of course, they've scored more goals than other teams, but they've scored less than Stjarnan. They've scored just one more goal than FO. Again, two teams that have not had a perfect season either. So this is a team that's supposed to be pushing Víkingur all the way, and now they could very very realistically be in fourth place by Monday.
Do you think that's a disaster for their season? I would say so.
I mean, it's a bit like Kauer. They did really well in Europe, and they made it to a cup final. So it's obviously the league thing is disappointing. But they made it to Europe, so that this season will always have that's golden star next to it, that they made it into Europe, the first male team to make it into the group stages. But there is a chance they actually lose out on Europe, which would be huge.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty remarkable that at one point there was a double-digit gap between Breiðablik in third and whoever it was in fourth, right? That's rotated around through several different teams. And now it's only down to 1 point, which is insane. Breiðablik on 38, FH on 37, and then Stjarnan just 3 points back from that on 34. And then Kauer one more back on that with 33. For Breiðablik, too, I should also mention that one player who I think has kind of disappeared. I don't want that to sound too harsh, but for me, that's Gisli Eyjolfsson. I felt like he was performing so well earlier in the season, and then the last couple months, I just feel like he's been really absent for them, and I'm not really sure what that's down to. It may be nothing, it may be something. I have no idea, but I felt like he was a key component, a key creator, and it's just kind of dropped off.
So I agree that this should have been maybe the season when he completely blew everything out of the water, because he has moments when you can just see he's way too good for this league. But then that sort of disappears a little bit. But I do think Europe has some bearing on that.
Yeah, I agree, and I think as we're kind of talking about this, it's becoming more apparent. I think Breiðablik's focus right now is really on Europe and not necessarily the league. And so, if they're gonna save that European spot for next season, they're gonna have to figure out a way to balance both, which is gonna be really interesting to see. I think the final thing I would say to kind of wrap up this discussion on this game is, so despite Kjartan Kari going out, he was subbed out and Vuk came in. And Vuk has been a player who has really stepped up in key moments this season. And this was another one. He's the one who got the second goal for FH to just kind of put the final nail in the coffin in this game. And so, I just wanted to kind of mention him because he's kind of been in and out a little bit. But whenever he's played, I've always felt like he's 100% committed and really offers something going forward. So I guess shout out Vuk. All right. that leads us on to our final game, which was between Valor and Stjarnan. And Valor rolled out 2-0 winners in this game. Pretty routine, I think. But the stats maybe don't necessarily agree with that. I mean, it felt like Stjarnan probably could have gotten something from this game, but in the end, just looking at the scoreline, it didn't end that way. So Valor pick up 3 points, and they are only in need of 3 more points to secure second place officially.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much secure as well. I don't think they have no Europe. They've been on the cup for a while, so this is the league has been the focus, and they've been out of the league title race for quite some time. So, I mean, credit to them. They haven't dropped off. They've kept the focus. They've had a few moments where they maybe could have been a bit more clinical and pushed Víkingur a few more weeks. But yeah, this is the sort of game that they should be winning if they want to secure Europe, and they did. And but yeah, on the other hand, Stjarnan will feel disappointed because this would have been a huge result for them if they could have gone to Valur and come away with 3 points and really pushed FH and Breiðablik there early on in this split. They're still, like you said, they're still not far behind. They're only 3 points from FH, 4 points from Breiðablik, but there's only 4 games left. So this will have felt like a huge loss to Stjarnan.
Yep. There was, I don't know, did you want to talk about the XG?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, the stats kind of point that, and there, you could tell from the interviews after the game that I think Guðmundur Kristjánsson, I think it was an interview with him, and he was very disappointed. He said he felt like they had 20 shots on goal. The stat said 18, so he was pretty close. So he really felt they were really pressuring Valor, but they just couldn't get anywhere close. And I think a huge credit has to go to the defense, which has been pretty solid. They've had, again, a bit like the Valor team, they've had their blips, but in general, they've had a pretty decent season, something to build on for next year. So yeah, the XG was 1.48 for Valor and 1.54 for Stjarnan, so I guess they can take that win back home to Karlabed.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's not like they just lay down and let Valur walk over them. So they came and tried, and they just couldn't quite match up.
Yeah. Good. All right. Well, that's round 1 of the split done. Round 2, you've got in the championship group, you have Kaur at home to Valor. That'll be a fun one. You've got FH hosting Stjarnan. Also will be a fun one. And then Breiðablik Víkingur. So yeah, three very entertaining matches, most likely. And we'll see if there's drama once again between Breiðablik and Víkingur. And then, in the relegation group, you've got Keflavik hosting Haukau. That's on Sunday. You've got IBVF hosting Fram, also on Sunday. And then Fylkir hosting Kawa. So the IBVF Fram game, I think, is going to be, I mean, that's like a true 6-pointer right there. If one of those teams comes away with a win in that game, that puts them at a huge advantage in terms of the relegation race, I think. So yeah, lots to look forward to. When we come back, we are going to we're going to talk about a few notes from around the league. Maybe we'll talk a little bit about the Icelandic national team as well, who the international break just ended, and then maybe a few other things. So we will be right back. All right, welcome back to part 2. We are going to just talk about a few things around the league. I'm actually going to hand the torch off to Tryggvi to kind of lead this section.
Yeah, so let's quickly talk about all the stuff that's been brewing on the entire season and the whole fines and sendings off of managers and complaints and all this sort of stuff that's still going on. So there were 2 conclusions reached in the week or in the past few days. So the incident with Arnar Gunnlaugsson being sent to the stands and then talking to his coaching staff on the phone against Valur. So Valur were not best pleased with that, as we've talked about. And the disciplinary committee has now reached the conclusion that he was not in breach of the rules.
Yeah.
They say that he was allowed to be in the stands and that talking on the phone isn't a breach of Icelandic FA rules. Valur cited that it will be a breach of FIFA rules or it is now in this season, 23-24 season or something like that, in the FIFA rules. But the committee decided that Icelandic FA rules trump FIFA rules for this one for some reason. So no breach. So yeah, I'm sure Valur will try to appeal that, but yeah, it sets a weird precedent, right? It's that a manager can just be sent off and then he goes into the stands, has a nice view of the pitch, and then talks to his players.
Yeah, that's not sure about that. Yeah, that's kind of weird because I thought Valur. Well, yeah, I mean, you just mentioned they cited. I guess it was a FIFA rule, and yeah, that's weird. That's all. That whole thing is weird.
I don't quite. I would assumed he would have gotten a fine, or him or the team Víkingur would have gotten a fine for this at least. I don't think anyone was ever gonna take the win away from Víkingur. I don't think that was ever on the table. But yeah,
right.
I don't know. But their title or ex-title rivals in Breiðablik were fined for, as you mentioned, the drama that we've seen this season. So the latest drama where they didn't show up until 20 minutes before kickoff. So they were fined for failing to submit information. You're supposed to do that an hour before kickoff, so they didn't check in with a ref and submit the team sheets and stuff. So they were fined 100,000 Icelandic kroner, which, given their European money, will be they can pay off.
Yeah.
Just by showing up to Israel tonight, I think.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But so we'll see. We'll see what happens on Monday. If maybe it'll just be a boring 0-0 draw. No cards. Everyone's happy.
I don't know about that. If the other games from this season are anything to go by, I would be surprised.
Yeah, I mean, the Víkingur manager said that they're going there to get the point and to win. So I'm sure Víkingur will very much shut up shop. And then Breiðablik will attack them like crazy to make sure that it does not happen. Yeah. So we'll see.
And we have our first officially promoted team for next season.
Yeah. So Lengjudildin is the name of the first division. So that officially wrapped up. And IA Akranes were promoted. They won the league. So they're back. Historic club. So that'll be really fun to have them back. I actually was in... The reason I couldn't make the cup final is that I was sort of in the countryside, and I was trying to make the last IA game against Gróta, but I ended up not being able to make that game either. So I could only sort of look into the game for like 5 minutes, and like I said, the weather was awful. but they won that game. They're promoted, and they won't be coming up to Breiðablik just to make up the numbers, so that'll be fun to have them back. Yeah. And then as a new thing, we have playoffs for the second promoted team, and the first round of the semifinals took place yesterday, and we had Afturelding away at Leiknir. Afturelding, who have been, I think, at the top of the league for quite a bit of the season and fallen off a little bit recently, but they managed to win this tough away game 2-1, so they're going to be feeling confident going into the second round, and then if they make it, they'll face either Vestri or Fjölnir. So Vestri is from Ísafjörður, so the only team there that's not from the capital region. As a neutral, it would be nice to get a non-capital region team as well. And they beat Fjölnir 1-0, so they'll also be taking a small nesti, as we say in Icelandic, to to their second leg. A small lunch into their second second leg.
Okay, I like it.
So it'll be fun to see who makes it. But yeah, after Elling and Vestri, I guess our favorites for the second round happening this weekend.
All right, that's exciting. We'll have to see. So then, obviously, whoever wins, the winners are going to face off for that for the last spot. Okay, got it. Yep, perfect.
And then, yeah, I mean, we can touch briefly on the national team. I think we don't need to talk too much about them. It was a while ago. 2 huge games like we spoke about in the last episode against Luxembourg and Bosnia. A lot of people were feeling confident before the game started. I think confidence was a bit depleted after the first game, where they lost 3-0 to Luxembourg. I sort of blocked that game out of my head. 3-0, 4.
It was either 3-0 or 3-1.
Yeah, 3-1. Yeah. Håkon scored one, didn't he? But yeah, it doesn't really matter, to be honest. It was a terrible game. Absolutely awful.
Well, and it might not have been the best game for Iceland, but I think Luxembourg are actually a better side than a lot of people give them credit for. And they have a lot of young players who are coming through too. Like, they got Borges Sanchez, who's at Borussia Mönchengladbach at the moment, and a host of other players too that, I think they're an interesting side. So given where Iceland is at the moment, new manager, lots of new faces. I know everybody wants to qualify for the Euros, but I think you're better off to have your eye towards World Cup qualification at this point. Because as you're probably going to come on to, they did look a lot better in the Bosnia game, I thought. And were able to sneak out with a 1-0 win on a late goal, which was very exciting. That was a fun game. Or at least I enjoyed watching that game, and it kind of ruined Bosnia's chances to to do anything with, in terms of going to the Euros and whatnot. And the Bosnia team right now has some internal chaos as well, which I don't know if that really played a factor in this game. Maybe it did, but no, I think for Iceland, I think there's a lot of exciting things to look forward to. And I think Age is still really trying to figure out the best 11 for this team. I don't think he's quite figured that out yet. And I think there might still be some faces in this team that you're going to see transition out as we exit Euro qualification and really start to get into like World Cup qualifying. I think there's still some change that's going to happen there.
Yeah, for sure. We talked about it that a lot of some of the old names weren't called up this round, and we got some young players. We got Orri Óskarsson from FC Copenhagen. He played. I think he played a bit in both games. He started against.
I think that's right.
He started against Bosnia and did really well. Like you said, it was more defensively minded, that approach to the Bosnian game, so he didn't have a lot to work with, but I think he ran around and made a real nuisance of himself. And there was a point when they were making subs and the commentators were like, okay, Ore is ready to come off. You can tell he's exhausted, and then he didn't come off, and I think a small part of him was a bit disappointed not to come off at that point, because you could tell he'd been running the entire game, but he kept going and did really well. So but it was obviously an old head that won the game, Alfred Finnbogason. No, you're right. Shouldn't forget to give Luxembourg the credit they deserve, but it was just a really bad performance from Iceland. And there was a lot of knee-jerk reaction about, oh, this is no better than when Arnar Viðarsson was in charge. And I think those voices got pretty quieted when we played Bosnia, because that's a huge difference.
Yep.
The first time we played Bosnia was very reminiscent of the Luxembourg game, where we lost 3-0, I think. And yeah, Bosnia are having their issues. I think they fired their manager right after we beat them, and he'd only been in charge for 30 days or something like that, right?
I actually did not.
They're a bit of a mess.
Yeah, I did not realize that they'd done that. I'll have to go check that out, because they are. There's, Dzeko. We don't have to go into it, but there's issues with Dzeko, and when he's called into the team, he's not staying with the team in the hotel, but he's supposed to be captain, but he's staying at his villa somewhere in Bosnia, and it's a mess. Like he's he's not leading the team like I think a lot of people want him to do and whatnot. Anyways, so all right. So yeah, that was the senior team. How about the under 21s? How'd they do?
Yeah, so I was actually at that game, so that was quite nice. When they played a friendly against Finland, and I think they won 3-2 or something like that, 2-1. But then they played against Czech Republic in their first game in the Euro qualifiers, and it wasn't the most impressive game I've ever seen, but it was nice to see some of the Bessadelten players, some of the young prospects playing. So that was quite nice. It was a bit of an odd approach, I felt, because you had the midfield, you had Eggert Aron in the midfield playing as like a playmaker, but the balls kept being played like very long balls to Andre Lukas Guðjónsson up top.
Yeah,
who was getting a lot of these balls, but like you're sort of bypassing a really good player in the midfield, and he was having to pick up scraps. And yeah, I don't know. After the first half, me and my dad were talking, and we weren't super impressed with how they were set up to this game. But then yeah, they managed to score quite a nice goal, a link up between the two Stjarnan friends, or one Stjarnan friends, Isak Andri and Eggert Aron, linked up to set up Andre Lukas, and it looked like it was over, but then the terrible back pass from Andre Lukas set up the Czech Republic. They equalized, and then it looked like they'd thrown this game away, only for Andre Fannar, who plays at Elfsborg now, with an absolute screamer at the very last second. So that was 2-1 win. Not the most impressive performance maybe, but really important to get a win against a side that's definitely not to be taken lightly.
All right, good. Well, thank you for that, Tryggvi. It's good stuff. We're going to take one more break. When we come back, we are going to go through our 3 stars of the round. So stay tuned for that, and we will be right back. All right, time now for our 3 stars of the round. I'm going to go ahead and kick this off. So I think these players probably picked themselves this week. Anyways, so yeah, our first star is going to go to Lilner. I still struggle saying that. Lilner Freyr Karlsson from Valor. And yeah, just another really solid defensive performance. He had a really nice goal in that game, and so he gets our first star. Tryggvi, who got our second star?
So yeah, it's obviously I'm getting this one because it's Kristinn Jonsson. He got a star a few weeks ago, I think, but he really deserved this one. Like we talked about, a redemption arc after a pretty dreadful first half. With that back pass to give Víkingur the 2-0 lead, but really driving from the front, not just scoring and assisting, but just all over the pitch and setting up, and really, could have won the game a few times there in the second half. So someone who really drove Kauer to a really impressive comeback.
Well deserved. Our third star is going to go to David Snær from FH. And, we've already kind of talked about him and the impact that he had on that game. And he's such a huge driver for this team at the moment. So he gets our third star. So that will do it for this episode. Thank you, everybody, for listening. We really appreciate it. If you would like to find more and kind of stay in touch, you can follow us on social media, on Instagram or on Twitter/X. At Besta English. We're looking forward to another week in the Besta. It's starting to come to a close, which is sad, but it's an exciting time as well. So Tryggvi, thanks for joining me again.
Thank you, Joe.
And we will see you all next time.